So, Happy New Year, Ollie. How are you?
Happy New Year, Mark. It's a pleasure to see you and be back on Learn Live UAE with you again. I'm very well, thank you. We are over here in Abu Dhabi. We're in the middle of week 2, distance learning again. Colleagues up in Dubai and other Emirates are kind of fully hybrid, face-to-face / online. But down here in Abu Dhabi, down in the south of the country, we are online and looking forward to going back to face-to-face next week. Very much so indeed. How are you, Mark?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. Busy start to the year, as you know, but viewers to the show might not know. I started a new job, albeit part-time. So I was so grateful to be able to still continue to be able to do the work I do supporting schools. Yesterday, for example, I was working with a school in Barcelona. Not literally, I wish, but I can still do the work that I do. But I'm really pleased to have taken on the role of Head of Education at Net Support Group. And I'm not going to spend our entire show going through all the products that Net Support have across the entire product portfolio. But what's brilliant about being able to work with a company like Net Support is not only do the products that they have really help serve education and ensure things like continuity of learning and all of that, and support teaching and learning and leadership of learning, but equally the team share the same sort of vision and values in education as I do. So long-standing supporter of our show and a friend to both of us is the managing director of Net Support, Mr. Al Kingsley. And so as someone who's done a lot of work with the company over the years, it's a really good fit for me to work with someone whose values and visions align with mine, and enable me to sort of pursue and continue my sort of vision of helping people. I got into teaching. I made a decision at an early age that I wanted to be a teacher, because I wanted to help children. I wanted to make the world a better place and all these sorts of things. And so still continuing my ICT evangelist work alongside what I'm doing with Net Support. That's a journey we can definitely grow together across both of those two different businesses. And I'm really proud to be able to work with Net Support and Al and the rest of the team. They're a great bunch to work with. So that's my big news. But it's really stressful, as you know, Ollie. I and many of our viewers will know, I'm based in England, and things are not looking good here at the moment. With the rates in London, for example, 1 in 30 people have coronavirus, 1 in 50 across the rest of the population, which is a phenomenal amount. And we have the more what's the word I'm looking for? The more contagious, I guess, version, the more easily transmissible version of coronavirus here as well. It's not looking good. All students in the country are now in remote learning as well. What's been really interesting here in the UK, and will be of interest to teachers and leaders in the UAE, because learning's learning wherever you are in the world. The inspectorate here in England, Ofsted, have released today a remote education guide with some really salient points in there. I was nearly late for a Learn Live UAE actually, because I was doing some sort of live tweeting commentary on the document. So if you do follow me, ICT evangelist, please do check that out. And the top tweet has got some the link to the document in there, and I've done some sort of commentary on some of the sections in there as well. But it's really good to see them focusing on things, saying that live lessons aren't the be all and end all, and probably should be a part of it, but aren't everything. Sometimes it's about learning from books, sometimes it's about watching a video, sometimes it's about something else, so forth and so on. And a key thing, a few key things in there for me really are about ensuring it's about delivery of curriculum. Remote learning is not a means to, or an end to itself. It's just a different way to share and deliver your curriculum. And there's great offered advice in there about ways to deliver feedback, the importance of things like retrieval practice, feedback, and question and answer, low stakes quizzing, chunking information. You know me with my approaches around keeping things simple, well-being of children, well-being of teachers. There's lots of good advice in there, and it's whilst it's not all what I would agree with, what's really good for me with my based in England hat on is to see that our government are doing what they can to try and support teachers. So whilst it's not the finished article, well, it is a finished article, they published it, but you know, it is a much better supporting document for schools and leaders than we had yesterday, a week, a month, 2 months ago. And so, you know, it's good to have something to build upon. Not the strongest foundation in the world ever, but really good compared to what we had previously. So really pleased to see that come out today. Welcome to the show, Sparkling Sugar, joining us via Periscope. The session today, we're going to be focusing on digital health for to sort of kickstart your year 2021. And as you can imagine, so Ollie and I are delivering the episode today. We haven't got guests on today, but as you can imagine, with both of our collective experience, there's a lot that sort of resonates between us. And in fact, when we were sort of comparing notes beforehand, there was actually so much parity in our presentations, which probably we should have just collaborated on one and been done with it. Yeah. So we've got just one slide deck to run through and share ideas from with you this afternoon and this evening. But welcome to the show, and that's our focus for the show today: digital health and ways to use technology to support that. And part of that, isn't it, Ollie, is actually about not using technology. And ironically, or coincidentally, no, more ironically, I think, the fact that you can actually use technology to help you not use technology is super useful as well. And there are some great tools out there and some great apps that can help us with mindfulness and these sort of things as well. So we're going to be talking about all those sort of things over the next little while. And if you've got any questions about anything whilst we're live today, please do drop those questions in the chat, and please do say hello and all those sort of things, as you just seen there from Sparkling Sugar. Thank you very much for joining us, and we are good to go. Did you want to add anything else on before I bring the presentation up, Ollie?
Yeah, just something that's just come out recently that I think it's really interesting, the difference in mindset between obviously UK and UAE, and I really do take my hat off to the region. Well, two things really. First, a shout out, because I've seen loads of teachers on Twitter sharing advice, because obviously we've been pretty much hybrid learning for the best part of 10 months now. So educators like Neil Oates have been sharing, along with a whole host of others for teachers in the UK, their experiences, our experiences from the region. So big shout out to all of those people. Please do keep sharing. Something that was announced today actually is the fact that, you know, we're considered key workers out here in the region. So teachers and their families can go and get for free a vaccine because we're considered frontline workers, which I think is amazing and speaks volumes about the place that I live in. You know, the UAE. So massive hat off. And I've seen, you know, colleagues of mine have already been for their vaccination this very evening. I've seen them posting about it on various social media channels. So it's really nice to see that. I guess that level of appreciation, understanding for teachers across the UAE. So thank you if anyone from, you know, any of the authorities is watching and happens to stumble across this episode of Learn Live UAE. You know, big shout out to you. Thank you very much. But coming back to what you said there, Mark, about the UK sharing that document, I'd be really interested to know, you know, their evidence base behind that and who they've liaised with, and whether they liaised with anyone in this particular region to piece that document together. Because I remember back when we first started this show, you know, that synchronous or asynchronous, which is the best approach, was, you know, that debate was raging on probably for a little bit too long. And, you know, as you and I both know, it's a blend of both that's the most effective. So it's great to see that that's in the document, widely available. So please do share that tweet, and I'm sure many educators in the region, just to bring it back full circle, can validate much of what's already in there.
Yeah, and I mean, speaking about teachers from the region, previous guest Philippa Wraithmall, who's Mrs. Wraithmall on Twitter, she's seen it already and has commented and is working her way through it at the moment as well. Unfortunately, I haven't had the time today to dig into the evidence base and look behind the scenes and things. They don't always share that information. no comments made there, but
Yeah.
I'm sure that Gavin Williamson won't be watching our show. More is the pity. Well, I'm sure he's got other things on his mind, like how to do his job, because this is not a political show, though, and I'm not going to.
Let's jump to digital health in 2021.
Absolutely, digital health. So I'm going to share my screen, Mr. Lewis, and I'll bring that up right now. And I'm going to have to sort of disappear out of StreamYard to do this, and I won't be able to come back really until it's finished. But hopefully you can see that full screen now, Ollie.
Perfect.
Happy days. So this forms actually, again, speaking about the region, my last international piece of work before lockdown was actually at the Digital Innovation Summit at the Jumeirah English Speaking School in Dubai. And two of the sessions that I did at the school were on digital health for teachers and for leaders. So what I've done for our session today is I've brought those two slide decks together into one. There was some parity across all of those presentations, and so to avoid replication, I've removed those sort of duplicated slides. But there's stuff inside this presentation which will be useful for individuals. There'll be stuff in here which is useful for leaders thinking about things with your sort of strategic and leadership hat on. But the first thing to think about really is where we were a year ago. So it was February last year I was sharing this presentation originally, and this is the situation that we were seeing. There needs a stories from news outlets such as the Gulf News site, and what a difference a year makes. If we were to be looking at the news articles now related to things like workload and salaries and so forth and so on, it wouldn't be linked to this. It'd be linked to screen time and all the rest of it. But one thing that's certain, it's not about the scenario that you're in. It all links through to your vision, your values, your approaches, and all the rest of it. And so the next slide really sort of dives down into making sure you think about having a strong digital strategy. And never before has your whole school digital strategy been more important than it is at the moment. All schools in the region have really moved on leaps and bounds. Many massively hit the ground running because they were powerhouses for effective use of technology long before coronavirus was ever on our lips and in our everyday usage. But having a strategy upon which to hang all those different things off of is super important, as we all now know. But I think it's worthwhile just reflecting and sharing again this document that I created with Al that I mentioned earlier from Net Support. This is a free guide that you can download from schooldigitalstrategy.com, and really does break down all those different areas to help you think about teaching and learning with technology. And the later iteration of this, which is the one which is on schooldigitalstrategy.com, includes sections around communication and collaboration, which are so important when you're working in DL, in distance learning. You need to be able to use those tools to enable and ensure the check-ins, the engagements, the insights that things like the Insights tab in Teams can bring you, for example, to ensure engagement and activity and so forth and so on. So, and that's a free guide available to you, and it covers all sort of your key sort of stakeholders and the key activities, from training to your senior leadership team to finance, safeguarding, so forth and so on. So please do check out schooldigitalstrategy.com and grab yourself a copy there. Even if you think you are absolutely brilliant with what you're doing, as I'm sure you are anyway, I always like to sort of give myself lots of balances and checks just to make sure I haven't ever sort of missed anything out or not thought of anything. So please do check that out as a means of helping you think about where you can go with all of this. Somebody I used to work with years ago, Ollie, and I know you know Zoe, because you wrote about her in your most recent post, actually, didn't you? And did a shout out for her book, Full On Learning, something that Zoe, and there's a great site with lots of these resources linked to this. But if you're looking about digital health and and just general workload related stuff. Marginal learning gains is a concept that she conceived quite some time ago, following the work of Sir David Brailsford when he worked with Team GB. And it's about micro improvements to your practice to help you improve, and that links into things like workload as well. So lots of these sort of marginal learning gains or marginal gains with technology can really help to improve your workload and ultimately your work-life balance as well. I run a show, as you know, Ollie, on a Thursday with Buki Youssef, and she's unfortunately contracted COVID at the moment. And I did a friend of mine, Zena Zenanos, has joined me as my co-host on there for a little while Buki's going through the difficult process of recovering and everything. But I showed Zena a new keyboard shortcut this week, and it's not a biggie. Okay, but many tools we often use copy and paste, don't we? Okay, from one place to the other. But if we're trying to copy and paste something in the same document or the same presentation or whatever it is we're using, yes, you can do right-click copy, right-click paste, or edit menu copy and edit menu paste. Each of those take a little bit of time, but there's a shortcut that works for a lot of things, which is Control and D, which is duplicate. I think I must have shared that with you before as well. It's really useful in PowerPoint and Google Slides and others. Now, she was absolutely blown away by that, and it's not because it's a difficult thing to do. It's not that it's going to save you a massive amount of time just by itself, but it's that marginal gain, so that you might only save yourself 0.25 of a second, or even half a second, let's say, at best, by doing Control and D or Command and D if you're a Mac user. But over the course of a day, a week, a month, a year, you are going to save yourself lots and lots of time. And so that's the idea behind marginal learning gains and relating them to technology. It's about those little sort of teacher hacks, I guess, that can really help to improve your productivity and ultimately sort of reduce your workload a little bit. And for me, it really is about keeping things simple. And that idea of keeping things simple is important in many things as well. You shared yourself, Ollie, about the importance of keeping things simple with distance learning, for example, making sure that you don't over egg it, do too much. Chunk information. Don't create one video that's half an hour long. Chunk those sections down into more manageable bite-sized things for your learners. That sort of thing. And the same can be true with what you do with the resources you make and all the rest of it. I'm the world's worst for laboring over slides, trying to make them just so. But as we learn throughout our careers, Ollie, consistently good is outstanding, and so. Being a perfectionist isn't going to help you, and good enough is good enough. So sweating all of that isn't things like that isn't always the best sort of approach to do these things. So thinking about health and all of these things. An issue that many schools have is around emails, and this also links into things in messages and chat. And WhatsApp groups that you might be part of, and Teams chats and so forth and so on. We'll get into notifications and things like that later, but certainly we are all still using email. So, what is the best practice around these sort of things? Now, you're involved in this sort of thing in your school as well, Ollie. Having a clear with my sort of school leader hat on, being mindful of teachers in my school and all this sort of thing. We don't want our teachers to be accessing all these sort of things and dealing with them out of hours. So if we're a school leader, then unless sometimes there are extenuating circumstances, and absolutely it should, you shouldn't feel like you can't send an email because the schools need to be shut tomorrow. It's not the schools in the UAE would have snow days, but there are reasons why schools are shut. That we've seen this back in 2020. So schools are shut. So think carefully about your rules and regulations around sending emails within your organisation, and make it really clear to staff about what the rules are, and not just have them modelling that stuff yourself as well. It might be that you're working on the weekend, and by all means write your emails when it works best for you, but don't just send them at the end, but schedule them. There are different ways you can do that sort of thing. And I'll show you how you do that in just a moment. But whether you're a Google school or whether you're a Microsoft school, there are easy ways that you can schedule those emails so they go out at a time, which means that all of your colleagues' phones and other devices don't ping. It also means that when you're working at 11:30 at night, burning the midnight oil, which none of us ever do, it means that when you can do all that work then, when you're able to squeeze it in, but it gets sent out at a more appropriate time. Another thing to do as well is to not have your school email on your phone. Certainly, data privacy should mean that you shouldn't have that sort of thing on your phone anyway, although some teachers and leaders do. But a good way of ensuring well-being around these sorts of things is to not actually have these things on your phone and make it so that you only get into these things. It might be more convenient sometimes because most people often have their phones with them all the time. Although my advice around phones with you all the time as well is to leave your phone well away from your bed at bedtime. Have an actual alarm clock rather than using your phone as your alarm clock. These sorts of things can be super helpful. But sort of sharing these ideas and best practices, advice and things with your staff I think are important too. Use built-in features to disable notifications, and that's helpful and important not just for email, but for social media, other things as well. Ollie and I obviously collaborate a lot, for example, to do with Learn Live UAE and other bits of work and things. But despite the fact that I know that Ollie needs to hear things from me, I'll still send him messages with a 4-hour time difference. I can send him a message at sort of 9 p.m. here, not too late. But obviously for Ollie, that's 1 a.m. And I know that his phone's off because it doesn't get delivered. I don't get a little tick in WhatsApp. so I know that he's doing right by himself as well, using these sorts of ideas to help with his own health and well-being and all of these things as well. So yes, this is important about emails, but it also applies in other areas too. And sharing this sort of thing on a whole school approach again helps with everyone's well-being and everyone's approaches to how we do these sorts of things and being professional. And the final thing, I think this is the final point. And the final thing I would say really is to try and ban staff all emails. And if you do need to send a staff all email, a top tip is actually to put, if you do need to send a staff all email, because one of the issues I've experienced in my career is when someone does a staff all and they put it in the 2-bit, and then one person replies and somebody else replies, and before you know it, you've got loads and loads of emails. And again, going to that marginal gain, this is a marginal loss. If you've got 100, let's say 100 teachers in your school, and only say 10 people of that 100 actually need to read that email, that's 90 people whose time is being wasted. And it might only be 10, 15 seconds, but you multiply that by the 90, then there's a reply, times it again, times it again, times it again. If you use the BCC, do you know what BCC stands for, Ollie?
Blind carbon copy.
Very good, top of class, well done. And that is a term. Do you know where the term comes from, Ollie?
Before my time, I think is the answer to that. This is pre-photocopier times, isn't it? When you used to get the acetate sheets out and basically make your own photocopy. Back in the days when OHPs were a thing as well, overhead projectors. Whilst I've got the floor, Mark, we've had a few comments come in
there as well. Yeah, go on, Ollie.
You did. Yeah, well, pass with flying colours so far. Sparkling Sugar has said this has made such a difference in our school about the not having emails on your phone, scheduling. I certainly fully subscribe to that. One of the best things I've done in the last probably 5 years of my career is not have emails on my phone, schedule things and actually not reply. And I remember having a discussion with a leader about how actually you shouldn't need to be on your emails at the weekend. If it's that important and if it's that urgent, then they'll ring you, and otherwise we should really just be making use of those scheduling emails. And I think a former guest on the show, Nicola, so she loves scheduling an email, always makes her look on time. And I fully subscribe to that. I think it's a massive marginal gain, going back to Zoe Elder, to actually just work when's useful for you, but schedule it when's appropriate for the rest of the staff body. And we've had one more comment come in from Sparkling Sugar again, say we have found they've asked people before creating WhatsApp groups. You know, WhatsApp groups have become that almost verbatim, quicker tool to communicate amongst colleagues. And I really like that they've asked permission. You know, is this useful for you? I think that's really powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those things as well. I mean, it depends on your school setup and things, but I mean, Teams is really good for that as well. Having Teams chat and having little groups in Teams chat is really useful. I don't necessarily see the point in having multiple apps for different things. So, having, but I do think that because there's a great tool in business that lots of schools have started adopting in recent times called Slack. You know, emails are quite formal, aren't they? But actually, informal conversation and a quick message where you can quickly reply with a thumbs up. Sometimes that's all that's needed. It's the notification. You've got to do this, or can you do the other? Thumbs up. You know they're getting on with it. You know, it's about providing trust with your colleagues, those sorts of things. And you don't need to get into that whole nitty gritty of salutations and complimentary closes and all these different things. And it means that the email is then a bit more formal. Jumping back onto the BCC thing as well, it actually goes back further than that. When we used to use typewriters, you'd have sheets of paper with carbon sheets behind it, so that when the hammer struck the rotary board on the back, when you typed the main thing, the ink would go onto the main bit of paper, but it meant you could do it in triplicate or quadruplicate or whatever you've got for your sheets behind it. So it's a carbon copy, comes from the carbon that was on the sheet behind the actual sheet of paper, so that when the hammer struck down, it would then put a carbon copy of that character onto another sheet behind it, another sheet behind it, another sheet behind it, so forth and so on. So that's where it came from originally. But yeah, it's a blind carbon copy means that when you do that within your emails, send it to staff all. When people reply, it only goes back to the original sender, and you don't bother all the other 100+ colleagues that might have that you would have been receiving that email as well. Which is again a great simple thing you can do to stop lots of people having their time wasted. So in Gmail, you can use a schedule send. There's a similar option in Outlook. You can do delayed delivery. You can do the same sort of things on iOS as well, either in a Gmail or Outlook app. And Spark is also a good email app, which includes scheduling as well. And now, self-regulation is really important for our learners, but there are tools that we've got on our own devices to help us regulate as well. And iOS have really been leading the way with this sort of thing as well, I found, Ollie. So things like screen time, so you can actually start having those conversations about your use of technology. Useful for students, but it's also useful for us as adults as well. So things like screen time and limiting your sort of time on different things. I'm a firm believer of trying to do things in chunks rather than in a bitty way. I've got a recommendation in a few minutes about using scheduling tools for things like social messages as well. And so having blocks of time where you work specifically on one thing means that your time, and this links into some of the theories around, I forget the guy's name now, but there's a school of thought around getting things done, the GTD approach. And it is about doing things specifically in blocks of time so that you end up being more productive. And you deal with all those things in one go, and then you get things cleared. So screen time can be really helpful for thinking about how you and when you're using technology. This is not my phone. Clearly, I'm not Elizabeth. I don't know who Elizabeth is. But that's just one of the images from the Apple set of resources, as is this one, where we can actually use our calendars more as well to really block in and plan our time. You know, rather than doing things on an ad hoc basis, say, right, I'm going to give myself an hour for planning on a Saturday night, let's say, or when I finish school on Thursdays, I've got a 2-hour window. I'm going to do my planning then to free my time up for the weekend and time it. and what you don't get done, you don't get done. And you'll find actually, rather than, and if you're one of those people like me who try to sort of pontificate on things being pretty and being just so and all the rest of it, actually you might then end up actually just making things good enough, like I mentioned before. So block the time and use your calendars to make specific calendars for certain reasons as well. That can be really helpful too. And then finally, and this is one of the things that we were both talking about before, wasn't it? Using this do not disturb feature. What I'm loving about the more recent developments as well with things like Teams and the calendars, when it knows you're going into meetings and all this sort of stuff, your phone knows that you're about to go into a meeting. So it asks you, do you want to put yourself into do not disturb straight away? And it times it specifically for that meeting and all these different things. They've got features now in iOS called wind down, which is again, really good for you to sort of start stepping away from your device. It knows when your bedtime is, it knows when your daily wake up time is, and it can track your sleep, all sorts of things. So really, really useful things to help us regulate our use of our devices and the time we spend on all these different things. Did you have anything you wanted to add on to that, Ollie?
Yeah, just that, in terms of monitoring your own usage, I think it's massively useful. I've put timing limits on kind of the main apps that I use. Certainly at the start of lockdown, my time went through the roof with them, and I wasn't self-regulating. So a lot of the stuff that you said, that I do that anyway, but something that I've ended up doing in reverse almost as a byproduct of all of this was not only to limit my time on apps through the iOS settings, but also I started putting my phone on airplane mode quite regularly, actually. Purely because I just don't want the notifications, and I just switch all the apps off, and if anyone needs me, they can actually physically phone me on the phone. And I found that that's been hugely useful because it completely helps me, focus my attention on the job that I'm doing at that particular time. Sparkling Sugar sent a little comment in, definitely an eye-opener with screen notifications. It's really scary. You don't realize how often not only you see a notification, but you pick up your phone. I think I looked at mine this morning ahead of this show, and between I got up at 6:30 this morning, between 6:30 and 11, I picked my phone up 72 times, which is ridiculous, really, when you think about it. It is such an eye-opener. It's actually quite scary.
No, absolutely. It's great to hear that these ideas are not only being put into practice by people, but are resonating as well as things to try and think about as well. So thank you for all the feedback and your comments. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you're liking what you see on our YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/LearnLiveUAE. We run a show every Monday evening, 8 p.m. Gulf Standard Time, 4 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time. And I'll move on to the next slide, Ollie, which is just sort of going to dig into some of the things you can do away from all of that. So voice typing is something that I'm a huge fan of. I'm an even bigger fan, in fact, of actually using my voice full stop. We've both shared on previous shows about tools like Just Mote, which you can use to leave audio feedback on Google Doc, Sheet, Slides, and in Google Classroom. And you, Ollie, I know are a huge fan of audio feedback in things such as OneNote.
OneNote audio.
Adding on top of that, actually, you did a shout out a second ago, Sparkling Sugar, talking about WhatsApp. I probably am about 50-50 on WhatsApp between typing stuff and actually just leaving a little audio message there. I do the same in Facebook Messenger. I do the same in Teams. It's so much better and quicker and more effective, I think, to just use your voice. If you're in a place or space where you haven't got somebody drilling next to you, or there being loads of ambient noise. I say that as my neighbours are doing some house renovations at the moment. So if you hear some drilling in a moment, that'll be the reason why. But if you're in a place or space where it's possible to do so and safe to do so, then audio messages are super useful as well. But on top of that, sometimes we do need to have text. And I'm pretty good at typing. I can, on a good day, do about 90 to 100 words per minute, and which is not too shabby, but I still can't beat voice dictation, voice typing, using the technology I have available to me. Now, there are different ways in which you can do voice typing. If you're a Mac user, like me, and don't think I'm exclusively Mac. I have got a Surface right next to me. I do use multiple devices, but on a Mac, you just simply press the FN key, the function key in the bottom left-hand side twice. Just press that twice, and that will bring up dictation. You speak in, it uses the Siri engine, and you can just sort of speak away into your device. It does tend to get better the more you use it, and try not to speak as you would do naturally. Try and be a bit more slow. So I would say something like, if I wanted to have what you can see on the screen so far come up, I would say, I'd double tap it. I'd say voice typing, new line, Mac, dash, FN, open bracket, tap twice, close bracket, new line, iOS, dash. It's not as natural as speaking like we are right now, but if you speak like you do normally, like we are right now, it will not pick it all up, and you won't save the time. What you'll end up doing is spending probably longer actually going in and proofing it and all the rest of it. So be mindful of that. So on an iOS device, phone, iPad, just use the microphone icon just to the left of the space bar. If you're using Google Docs, you can go to the tools menu and choose the option voice typing. You'll just need to give your Chromebook or whatever device you're on permission to do that in your browser, and you can do it that way. And then if you're a Windows user, it's just Windows key and H. Again, each of them have varying degrees of success, but over time, do tend to really support and help you to be a bit more efficient with what it is that you're doing. It's great for student feedback as well. If it's better to actually leave typed feedback than audio, notice where it's not possible for some reason to not leave an audio bit of feedback, a bit of verbal feedback using your voice, then dictation is a great way to do that. Did you have anything to add on to that, Ollie?
No, I just reaffirm the point of audio feedback is brilliant for students. We've both said that multiple times on previous shows, and I know people tuning in like Nicola are advocates of that in OneNote. Mark Ryan has just chipped in. Thanks for watching, Mark. He said, time to start writing my book with voice typing. Do it. Let us know how you get on. Hopefully you won't have to edit too much.
That's a good point that Mark makes there, though. Actually, a lot of my blog posts, because stream of consciousness, when you're doing some actual, doing some writing for a purpose, stream of consciousness is really important. And so, what when I write, I put out a blog post yesterday about vision and values when it comes to remote education with loads of resources, and the large majority of that post I actually wrote not using my hands at all, but actually just sitting down and just speaking into Pages I used actually for that post, and I spoke into Pages, and then I copied and pasted it over to WordPress and sort of filled in all the blanks and things that I knew needed to go in there with the tweets and the photos and the resources and all the rest of it. So yeah, a great point you make there, Mark. Using that for your writing for a purpose is really, really useful. And again, when the device gets used to you and how you speak, so it becomes more productive as you become more used to doing those sorts of things as well.
Yeah, Neil Statham just throwing a comment in. Thank you, Neil. He dictated his reports last year. Far less errors.
So, superb.
Super useful. Sparkling Sugar has just thrown a question into the mix. Can we do audio feedback on Google Classroom?
Yes, you can. There's a tool called Mote, M-O-T-E. If you follow just Mote, just M-O-T-E-H-Q, I think it is, on Twitter, and then you'll get all the links through to all of that. You can do it freemium, so you can do it for free. If you want to get the extended length of time on the actual audio recording, Sparkling Sugar, then you'll need to pay for that. But you can access it and do as many audio notes as you want to for free with that. And a good person to follow who shares a lot about Mote is longtime friend, longtime sufferer, John Neal, who you may be aware of. Maybe, Ollie, you could go into the chat and just pop John's J Neal UK Twitter handle in there for Spark and Sugar to follow and check out. But yeah, Moat is a great tool. They were a guest on, I do a monthly show called the Check It Out Show, looking at new ed techs. And I shared it on a previous show with you anyway, haven't I, Ollie? But we had the creator of Moat come on sharing about it there. And there's some really fantastic things you can do with it. It's even got like a STEM version, a STEM mode, where you can put in chemical equations and all these sort of things, and it will take your audio and convert those into the correct symbols and things. I'm not a chemist, so I'm not going to try and get into all of that, but yeah, super useful for mathematicians and scientists. Loads in there, but yeah, MOTE is the short answer. So moving on, just things you can do in relation to efficiencies. I mentioned keyboard shortcuts earlier with Control and D. There are loads of keyboard shortcuts out there that can help you. In fact, just for Christmas, we had Teach Meets UK Edu Stories. You were a presenter on that, Ollie. Thank you again for that. It was a great session. My session was actually keyboard shortcuts to support teaching and learning. So and to make your life easier. So please do check that out if you want some more of these, but there are loads that can help us. There are things we can do as well to save time with screen recording. Screen recording has been hugely helpful and popular to support distance learning in the last 12 months. And there are many ways that you can do that. It's built directly into many operating systems like Mac OS and Windows. You can screen record directly within there. There are great tools built into some of our most popular programs as well. PowerPoint has got a screen recorder built into it, which links directly to Microsoft Stream. You can do it in so many different ways. There are great tools to support this as well. I was supporting a teacher just before I went live today with a great free for education tool called Loom, which many of you will now be aware of, given the pandemic. But there are lots of things that we can do to make our lives more efficient when it comes to technology. And speaking of keyboard shortcuts, this is probably one of my favorite keyboard shortcuts ever, because have you ever had that thing, Ollie, where you're doing some work in a browser? Could be Edge, could be Chrome, could be Firefox, whatever, this shortcut works in all of them. But have you ever done some work and thought, and then closed the tab and then thought, oh no, I haven't saved it? Or you've closed the tab by mistake. Have you ever had that happen to you before? I'm sure you have.
Far too many times.
So Control, it depends on the device you're on. If you're on a MacBook, it's Command, but if it's on a Chromebook or a Windows laptop, Control, Shift and T will bring back that tab you just closed. Also, if you are, I'll be honest, I don't know if this is the case on every browser, but I know it definitely works in Chrome. If you close your entire browser by mistake, when you open Chrome back up again, if you press Control, Shift and T or Command, Shift and T, when it comes back up, it will not only bring up your most recent tab, it will bring up everything that you had opened at the last particular time when you had it. So let's say you need to clear your screen to do a screen recording. Just close Chrome, not a problem, happy days, do it all, crack on, do your screen recording, open Chrome again at the end, Control, Shift and T, boom, everything will come back up just as it was when you last left it. Unless, of course, you're using a site where you had to have saved something before you closed it. If you do that, that's on you, not on me, okay? But yeah, one of my favourite keyboard shortcuts there, because that has saved me. I was going to say saved my bacon then, but that would be culturally insensitive, so I'll be quiet. Control, Shift and T has saved me many times with things I might have lost using my my devices.
Control Z, Mark, as well. That's my favourite. Control Z.
Yeah, Control Z is a goodie. It is a very goodie. Try that, Ollie, with the Shift key on as well. Just saying.
Yeah.
You're jumping in, Ollie. Go on. What's up?
No. I was just going to say. Mark Ryan, vote of confidence. Ollie doesn't make mistakes. No, just made one. There you go. He's also said it's a good way to check on his own kids, so he can see what they've been looking at on their devices. So
you're absolutely right. I didn't mention this because we're not in the classroom at the moment, but you know how teachers have all got their own like sort of special radar. You know when something's not quite right. As someone who's taught in an IT or in a room with computers in for many, many years. My teacher radar pretty much always knows when a student's doing something they shouldn't be. Now, if you're a lucky teacher in a room like that, then you'll have a tool like Net Support School or Classroom.cloud where you can see what's on every screen in your classroom. But if you haven't, why not? But if you haven't, and your teacher radar is peaking a little bit, like Mark alludes to there, it's very easy to just walk around the classroom, and I've had moments when children have been like, "Wow!" It's like a teacher superpower, because they've been on a YouTube video or they've been on a site, they've managed to find Tetris or something that they shouldn't be on, and or snakes or whatever it is. You walk around, by the time you get there, they've closed it. You just say, yeah, can I just use your keyboard a second? Then they move out of the way. You press Control Shift and T really quickly, and it comes back up. And they're like, the jaw hits the floor, Ollie. It is just an amazing classroom moment when you bring that tab back up and they realise they've been found out. So you're absolutely right, Mark. It is a really, really good way to find out when your teacher radar is peaked by some off-task behaviour. It is a great way of finding that out. So brilliant. Thank you for sharing. Thank you.
It's 1:45 now, Mark. Just as a time.
Yeah, I've just checked them myself as well. So social media can be a real time drain as well. So rather than getting on Twitter all the time and responding to all the notifications, turn your notifications off. And in fact, if you want to see some of the highlights from your timeline, don't even go on Twitter at all. Use a free app such as Flipboard, which will not only send you a daily digest of some of the top tweets from your timeline. Twitter actually will do that as well. If you go into the settings, there's a setting there where they can send you a daily email digest of things and trends that you want to see. But Flipboard's a great app for doing that sort of thing as well. If you're looking to, rather than just using the like button as well, use Wakelet to curate and curate tweets and research you're doing on topics. And the great thing about Wakelet is it's super easy to collaborate with colleagues or friends on those sort of things as well. And if, like many people in schools, very much so in the UAE, where you want to share the great stuff that's going on in your classroom and whatnot, don't open Twitter and start, and put your photo in there and tweet it straight away and whatnot. And get a tool like Buffer where you can easily schedule 10 tweets to go out at specific times that you choose, rather than it being like in the middle of a lesson or whenever it might not be appropriate. And it goes to that blocking and chunking of your time and doing things at specific points. So take the photos as they're happening in the class, but carry on doing your great job of being a teacher. But then when you've got your block of time for scheduling your tweets, just get yourself into Buffer and schedule them based upon times that work for you and your life, because it's life-work balance, not work-life balance. We've spent plenty of time talking about having your notifications off. So just to finish off, I've got 2 tools to recommend to help you switch off a bit more as well. One is Headspace for educators. Many people really, really rate this. I use it myself. I don't use the next one, to be honest, because why use 2 when 1 is enough? But they have slightly different approaches to helping you switch off and get a bit of headspace, for want of better words. But Headspace for educators is completely free, and now more than ever do you need some time to actually be able to be a bit mindful and think and switch off from your technology, particularly when you're spending as much time, if you're in Abu Dhabi, with distance learning. So Headspace is a great shout, and I know that I'm not the only person who thinks that's a great tool, and many of our viewers will be aware of this and be using it themselves already. The next one I wanted to share, though, is called Calm, and maybe I shouldn't have given Calm all those bouncy animations there, Ollie, because it's not very calm, is it? So both tools have free for education offers, and are both worthy of checking out, and both have the same sorts of features and functionality to help you get a bit of mindfulness and calm in your life, particularly around sleep and rest and recuperation and all those different things. I have got some more stuff to do, but being mindful that it is late and you've all been working really hard today, all I'm going to do now is I'm going to jump straight to my last slide and just say thank you. And it was really nice, Ollie, to have a change actually for me to present some stuff and share on the show as well, albeit they weren't all my messages because they were things that you were going to share as well. But I'll leave it there for today. Thank you very much indeed.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much. Thanks also for the comments that are coming in. Sparkling Sugar said, thanks both. Session has been extremely helpful. Lots of magic superpowers shared. Stay safe. What I always really enjoy about listening to you, Mark, is I always take something away. Even though, knowing as I do and working on projects with you, I always learn from you, which is absolutely fantastic. So thank you very much for sharing that. I know that we crossed notes beforehand, but thank you very much.
An absolute pleasure. So I've got some questions for you now, Ollie. So Learn Live UAE, as it says on the screen, every Monday, 8 p.m. Gulf Standard Time, 4 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time. So next Monday, what's occurring?
So next Monday, 18th, we are hosting a show, practical tips for managing student wellbeing. I think that's really important, given that many of our students haven't set foot in the building, if you're in Abu Dhabi, since December. So those students that are kind of hybrid face-to-face in other Emirates, I think that's still really important, given that in the region for pretty much 10 months now, which is a considerable time frame. We've been in the situation that we find ourselves in. So really looking forward to having some guests come on the show and share their top tips for managing student wellbeing. We're also hosting in this part 2, series 2, which is where we are, because we're not naming it season 3, viewers. I know many of you were expecting that, but we're still in an academic year. So each academic year is a season. We're going to have a show that focuses on PSME and moral education. Obviously, that is a part of all of our curriculums, and it's a topic we haven't delved into yet on the show, so looking forward to that. I'm not going to give away the focus for our mini-series, Mark, but we have another mini-series lined up within the next couple of weeks across February. We're also going to have a show, subject-specific show for scientists, where we're going to invite on to co-host with us Matt Clark, long-time friend and guest of the show. But I won't steal any more of Matt's thunder there on that one. We'll wait for him to sort of divulge the information in a series prior to that show. We're also looking to run shows with some other well-known companies in the region, for example, ISC Research. So we're obviously doing things similar to what we've always done, Mark, staying true to our vision and values, but trying to hear from some new people in the region to share their learning and experiences with us. So really excited to see what the next couple of episodes hold.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're watching today, or if you're watching on playback, which is absolutely fine, that's one of the reasons why we use the platforms we do, to make it asynchronous as well as synchronous if you want to. If you'd like to get involved, if you've got a topic you'd like some support with, or if you've got some specific expertise which you think would be a good fit for the show, then please do drop myself and or Ollie a line to let us know about that. But for now, it's almost 9 p.m. With you, and so being mindful of bedtime and a bit of a wind down before bed, because I'm sure you've been very excited to hear from, maybe not, but excited to hear from myself and Ollie for the last 55 minutes. All I want to say now really is thank you for joining us, and we'll catch you on the next episode of Learn Live UAE. Thanks for joining us.
Bye, everyone.
You know, Ollie, I'm wondering, is Ollie starting the end credit video, or am I? That's the question.
Here it is.